Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I gave you the scenario yesterday that if you were, um, you got home and you were asked, "Hey, you've been out all day. What have you been doing? What have you done, etc., etc." What is it that you would say? So I'm going to give you another minute to think about that while I just grab something, and then I just wanted to cover that. Yeah. All right. Okay, so what are your thoughts? What did we take away? Did anybody wake up thinking, project management? So yes, let's go for it. Apologies, I'm just doing some printing, but it shouldn't disturb us, yeah. So who's first? Okay.
Yeah, I told my mom, yeah, we went out to eat and they were like, oh, what do you do?
Oh, you went out to eat after?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good one. Okay.
So she was like, oh, what do you do? We want to spend all that time there. What we did was we learned the basic premise of project manager, what a project is, the ins and outs, not necessarily ins and outs, but there was a step in the door in the project.
Yeah.
Purpose, the usefulness of it, few features or the things associated with projects and managing them, such as IPFC.
Yeah.
And I mean, she didn't want to just all this jargon, before into that much of it.
Yeah.
But I just told her, yeah, it was like the step in the door for project management. What was it?
Okay. All right. Good. Yourself?
Yeah, as he said, he went up to him
Yeah.
and yeah, so she just had both of them. How was the second one?
Yeah. How was the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big kind of piggyback off from me, says, yeah, I thought yeah, it was stepping into the world of public investment.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to specialize in that. So it's more so a step into the future for me. Because obviously in this training program and the field and the field I'll get from this, allow me to be to provide value to potential businesses that are hiring comes to. So obviously give us a brief rundown. Product management isn't just about managing projects. It's about managing people, your stakeholders, everybody involved.
Yeah, sure.
From the customer to your PMO to anybody who's involved.
That's around, yep.
You told her about the project life cycle, but it wasn't too like it wasn't too understanding of us. So I just had to quickly touch on it. Told her the ins and outs and just the key things.
Principles.
The project managers like information should always go through, around.
Yeah, good point.
Everything, communications, consistency, all of that. So, just give her a quick brief rundown of what we touched on last lesson. That
was it. Okay. All right, perfect. I'm glad to hear that. So obviously today, like I said, we'll be carrying on as planned. Yesterday we got to a very good point, I guess. So we're just gonna actually carry on from there. If you remember yesterday, we got to discussing around the characteristics of the different functionalities or rather, organizational structures as well, because that's obviously another key part of what makes this a success, realistically. So that said, I'm going to carry on with this. Yes. Who was it? Was it Fumi that messaged me?
No, it was me.
Was it yourself? You messaged me about the steps. About the steps. Yeah. So yesterday, I took a screenshot and I got to, remember what I got to?
Around 10,000.
Around 10,000. Yes, exactly. So that said, I think the closest person to 10,000 would be, that was only at 12. Yeah, that was only about 12,000. Yeah, okay. So I'll do this. We can either roll over into today, or we'll just say that, okay, that was yesterday's and that was yesterday's. Please remind me, I do have snacks. I did bring snacks. It's in my boot. I brought plantain chips. So it's in my boot, and I just remembered now. So when we take a break, we'll go out and grab that. I think Olu would be with us shortly as well. So, when he comes up, we'll come to the whole steps side of things. But perfect. So we talked around the characteristics, obviously the importance of it, how we need to be able to manage teams. Now, why this is also important is the fact that you're never going to find yourself in a situation or in an environment where the business just has resources lying around. Does that make sense? Because the more resources you have, the more it's going to cost you. So if you can have one person do something, that is what you're going to have. You're not going to hire 3, 4, 5 different people to do one single thing. So for your benefit, and I think I'm going to probably say this multiple times, for your benefit as well, that's again another justification as why it's important to have skills, because businesses value skills. You understand? That's what they want. If somebody comes in and this person said, "Oh, I can only do one thing," the business will say, "Oh, okay, great." You understand? If that's all they need at that point in time, then perfect. But if the business is like, "Okay, we need a bit more than one thing that this person can do," you understand? So then if you're the person with those skills, then it works to your advantage, realistically. So that's just elements to consider. So in the case here where we've got resource availability, how does that impact us as project managers? The fact is, you're not necessarily going to have a dedicated resource completely 100%. That resource will be more than likely, in some cases, coming from a business unit. You understand? Yeah. So that means they still have their own BAU. Do you understand BAU? BAU is business as usual, meaning they still got their own day-to-day job, right? So because they have that, they're not now going to say, "Oh, let me drop that and focus on your projects," because they would be coming from a functional unit into a matrix. So remember, the only point they become 100% ours is when we know, okay, this person is fully dedicated to our project. They're not working on any other projects. Therefore, that makes them a complete project resource, which would then take the organizational structure of that person to become projectized. Yeah? Good. So it's important to always remember that, because again, you're never going to have that perfect moment. And I remember there was a time I did an interview, and the question he asked me, and I was like, it's a very good question. Like, if you're working on a project and you need a resource that another project manager needs that same resource, you understand? What would you do? You both need a resource at the same time. What would you do? How would you go about that? Let me ask you guys that question. Funny thing is, you're twins. So I'm guessing you both have to share things many times, but what do you do? What is that process? What does that process look like?
You can rate it in terms of, you can allocate it in terms of like the first factor is like importance.
Yeah.
What the platform they use.
Yeah.
You can use like different factors like that to see who will have use of that resource.
Yeah.
The other.
Perfect. Yeah. Exactly. That's actually a very good point. There are so many other ways, but that is a very good point. You would want to basically almost do an assessment to understand who actually needs this resource, who's going to maximize this resource, who should have access to this resource, things like that. So it's very, very important that you're actually able to do that. Again, think back to what I was saying yesterday. That's where your people skill comes into it, your communication skills. Because when you're on a project, as much as you might think, "Oh, you only need to worry about your project." If in the event that there are resources you're working with, and also, like we're saying, these resources themselves are working on other projects, you want to, as best as possible, get let me say, a long-term view of what that person's capacity looks like. Because if you're going to be using that resource time and time again, you need to make sure that, okay, what has this person got on their table? If they're only working for you, they're only working for you, even better. That's fantastic. But the truth of it is, that's not always going to be the case. You understand? So it's how do you then manage that, situation, right? Because there is no perfect environment. Very few companies, very, very few have, let me say, unlimited resources. Very, very few. Okay. So we've talked about this, even down to the budget, the project manager's role, project management team, the administrative team as well, So from a business perspective, like you were saying, if a project is priority, they're going to push their resources towards that project. But if your project that you're managing isn't priority for the business, then what do? You understand? Because you still have to keep it going. You understand? But that's where it's important that and one thing I've learned is the importance for you to be able to build relationships, right? Yeah. Remember what I said, that there's what I termed as undelegated, undocumented power. Thank you very much. You understand? Yeah. So where that comes into effect is where you have built relationships. And sometimes it might just be jokey, but I've been in situations where I've had to get a resource to do something. And I'm like, please, mate, if you can just stay behind and get this done, I'll buy you a drink. I'll buy you a pizza. Yeah, it's not a bribe. It's you getting your project done. Because people like to be looked after. It's just human nature. People like that, somebody cares about them. Because as a project manager, remember, you're a servant leader. So one thing you don't do is you don't ask your team to do something that you can't do yourself. Right? Yeah. So me asking this guy, can you stay behind? Can you do this? Can you do that? If he was to have been like, are you going to stay with me? And I said, no, I'm going home. How do you think he's going to feel? Yeah, he's going to be like, oh, okay, so I should stay here and work so you can go home to your family? You think I don't have a family? You understand? So it becomes a real problem. So again, it's all about how you manage those relationships, how you engage with people. So, you guys are far from the politics, but I always even say, when you get into the working environment, you need to really look around and see who's calling the shots. You understand? Who's who? Again, undocumented power. Somebody could have been there for donkeys of years, and held the same position. And it might not be a high position, not let me say good, a high position, but they've got power because people respect them. People are like, yeah, this guy's been here for however long or whatever long. You understand? So that's very, 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 very important. So any questions on what we have discussed now? No. Okay, perfect. So let's just move on slightly. So covering the processes, as you already know, IPMC is a life cycle that we focus on. Obviously, when you get into your projects, you will still be talking about and touching on the agile side as well, but primarily for A-class at this point in time, just to make that understanding a lot easier. IPMC is what we focus on. And as you know, that is initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and then closing, right? So this is the basic life cycle that all projects follow. It doesn't go beyond that realistically. Then what we call PDCA, right? PDCA is plan, do, check, act. That in itself is also a life cycle. PDCA, plan, do, check, act. Yeah? Yeah. Now, if you look at this, you can see how it overlaps across the IPMC life cycle as well. Because if you see here, for example, you've got the planning, right? Which exactly, it connects with the planning process, right? The do is what? What are we doing? That's where we're execution. That's where we're actually doing the work, right? The check is us now doing our monitoring and controlling against what we have planned, right? And then the act as well, you see act here is still following the monitoring and evaluation. So we plan something, we do it. As we've done it, we check it. Once we've checked it, we act. So that act is saying, okay, is it keeping us in line? We monitor what we're doing. So you see here, the monitoring and evaluations, basically all those processes sit within the monitoring and evaluation, right? Because that is how the life cycle there, becomes one. So if you have a goal, I've got a current goal now, and honestly, this is probably not the first time I've set the goal, but I think this time is looking a lot more serious. I think by the end of it, I'm going to get to, I think Evans, like I said yesterday, this is going to be 7 weeks straight of work and everything else. And part of the goal is to work out every single day, right? So last week, I didn't do every single day, but I did 8 sessions last week. So that's fine. This week, I've done 7 of 7, and I'm going to keep going on, right? But that is me. I've planned it, right? I'm doing it, right? So again, I still need to be checking and acting on it. Understand? To make sure it's not just, some, let me say, fancy words on paper, right? So if you look at why it's important for us to understand the different management processes, key thing is it helps us to ensure project alignment, improves the project planning, enhances the communication, increases efficiencies, and facilitates risk management. Risk management is a massive part of what we're going to cover, but we will get into that as time goes on, right? Because as a project manager, as much as you are there to keep things on track based on the plan, you're also there should in case anything go the other way. Right. So just to cover some of the stages from a high level, obviously initiation, like we already know, is the first part of this. That's what kicks off, even though let me say it kicks off the project, but it's a major part of the project that sets the project outright. But like I mentioned before, prior to that is where your business case come in hand. And your business case is there to act as justification as to why you are doing the project. So that why is extremely important. The why are you doing this project? Because again, like I said, businesses don't just do projects for fun. Oh, sorry, one second. Yeah, businesses don't just do projects for fun, no matter who they are, and no matter even how much money they have, right? They will still be like, nah, we're not doing that. Because even if where you see all this social, that they care for the environment, they do this, they do that, yeah, great. You understand? But nah, there's a reason behind it, you know. Then with the planning, what do we do in this stage? Obviously, we develop the plan, right? And for us to develop the plan, we need to really know what is in scope, right? So you understand what scope is, yeah?
Yeah.
Scope is what we're doing. But like I mentioned yesterday, it's important that we know who are we doing this for? Who is interested in this? Who is impacted in this? So that we're able to capture all their requirements. Because again, what we don't want to be in is in a position where we haven't captured requirements and we're now looking at ourselves like, oh, because again, depending on the person whose requirements we may have missed. So, you guys want water?
Oh, yeah. No.
You want cold one or room temperature?
Cold, please. Cold. Oh,
Cool.
no, okay.
Yeah, okay. Give it this.
Thank you.
So the stakeholder part, extremely, extremely important. Okay. Then obviously moving on from there, we want to create a WBS. A WBS is a work breakdown structure, but that's something we'll come to. And then identifying project risk. Already we've spoken about this a few times. And then developing a project schedule. So for developing a project schedule is very much similar to developing a plan. It's just who's doing what, when, and how is everything connected. One thing I will tell you again is a project manager is not the one that does the work. You understand? If he's not the one that does the work, what does he do? What does a project manager do? He directs people. Yeah. So he manages the people that are doing the work, right? And you might think, wait, but everybody's an adult and everybody can do this. No, it doesn't work that way. If you are a project manager, you are still expected to literally make sure people do what they need to do. And it's as simple as that. I've been in project environments where I remember there was one particular one, there were issues, technical issues. Obviously, I'm not the expert. I put a meeting together for the experts. Obviously, with myself still being in the meeting, I get there. I was running late, actually. I get there, and these guys haven't started. And I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, why haven't you guys started? Like, in my mind, because I'm late, I'm thinking, these guys have already started. They probably already resolved the issue. They already, nah. And I'm like, wait, how? Why? In short, they were waiting for me. And I'm thinking, but I don't know anything. You understand? I'm literally just a project manager. You guys are the experts. No, but it still needed me to be there so I can say, all right, guys, this is literally this is how it went. I'm like, all right, guys, this is the problem that we have. I laid out the problem for them, and then I zipped my mouth shut for like 30 minutes. You understand?
Yeah.
Just so that I kicked them off. So that's why, as a project manager, you yourself cannot be somebody that is not a self-starter. You understand? You have to be a self-starter. You have to be somebody that wants to come out and get it and go for it and just basically, make it happen. It's as simple as that, you know? Obviously, importance of planning, the planning process and organizing project resources and tasks. We want to make sure we've got the right people in the right places, right? It's important that we have a clear steps, milestones, deliverables of what is taking place. And again, you'll see it as well, identifying potential risk. You understand? If it's easier for you guys, what I can do is send you the Zoom link so you can follow it on your laptop. So yeah? Okay, give me 1 second just to sort that out for you. Participants. Second. Copy link. So I think you guys have a group. I think you've been placed in the group, yeah. Yeah, so I've just popped it in the group. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Did you get the link as well, yeah? Okay. Okay, so just wrapping up on the planning process. Obviously, a good plan helps us facilitate communication and collaboration, right? Without a plan, it's not, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. And the thing is, we do this more times than we actually realize, but the only difference is we don't necessarily sit there and document it that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, right? Even leaving one city to another city, not to talk of leaving one country to another country. You guys would have just left Nigeria and be like, get to the airport and say, oh, where are we going? You understand? And, oh, okay, oh, maybe Manchester. You understand? Because you know that, oh, you need to have a plan in place, So even if somebody's moving from one house to another, it's still a lot of work, because they still have to plan, right? Obviously, with the execution phase, this is where we're doing the work. So consider it as the part that you're driving. So to give you another example, let me just bring up the, 1 second, let's come out of there. So to give you another example, if I went to Google Maps as an example, and I said Salford, this Salford shopping center here, and I'm wanting to go to, let's say London as an example, right? You see this now, okay? So this shows you what realistically is a plan, right? In some cases, you can technically call it a roadmap. Now, what is showing you is basically all the points on the road, the key areas, the points that you change, and you can literally, follow it through. Gives you two options. This is 210 miles, and it's 4 hours, 6 minutes longer. Or this is 3 hours and 56 minutes, which is 208 miles, right? So even you deciding which one you're going to take, there may be factors to it. Looking at this, I don't think, for the sake of 2 miles, I don't think 10 minutes, because that's literally what it is. I don't think 10 minutes makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
So you could go whichever way, right? If there was nothing, that you're dependent on. But assuming you had to be in London for a set time and, the difference was about half an hour, anything above half an hour difference, you're going to be really like, oh, no, we'll take the shorter journey, because of time, right? And these things happen. So again, that point there, this is very high level, but you'll see like with the maps, when you now go into it, they're now giving you almost like turn by turn, right? As to, okay, this is how you navigate the road. Well, I've just done something else there. So let me see if I can undo. Yeah, that should undo it. Maybe not. But yeah, let me just zoom back up. Okay, so I don't know how it's done that, but right. So that's still my path that I need to take. So that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I go into details here, what you see here, this section, if you look at this, you're going to be like, wait, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turnings. Really? Just 6 turnings? No. You understand? The reason it's like that is because what you see here is high level. Yeah? There's what we call HLD. HLD is high level design. So what you see right here on your screen is a high level design, or rather a high level plan of that journey. Right? And then if I now click into it and open it up more, you can see that, oh, whoa, there's way, way more than just those 6 steps or however it was before, right? And you can now see that, oh, okay, yeah, there's actually a lot going on. It's showing you pictures in terms of where you start, what the journey looks like all the way through. It shows you the what do you call it, the charge zones, etc. Right? And it gives you line by line by line by line. At this point here, I've not even left London. I think I'm still in London. And then now I get onto the motorway, you know. So you see here, for example, it says this journey now is going to be 183 miles, which is the majority of your journey. And that's going to be almost 3 hours, right? And you can just follow it step by step. So it gets easier, obviously, the better you plan it. But if you didn't plan it, it's going to be more work than you actually expected. So that's like the execution. Then obviously the monitoring and control we've spoken about as well. And like I said, closing is not such a big deal. I will just tell you now, why closing is important. Not that everything isn't important, but closing is important because that's where the end value is for you, especially as a project manager. Because when you now get into another project in another area or different company, what they are taking you on for is the lessons you have learned. That's what I'm saying. You can't go there and they say, oh, tell us about some of the projects you've done. And then you say, oh, you're doing right. You're good. All right. So guys, this is Ray. Ray is a senior project manager, alumni, also a trainer. What else are you?
Right hand man.
Right hand man. So
Part of the Avengers.
exactly.
The OJ Avengers.
The OJ Avengers. I'll pause for a second. I'll let Ray talk about himself before he gets into work that he's got to do. So Ray, this is Fumilade and Demilade. We do have so we're recording, so there's some people online. It's them online as well, but we've got some people that are gonna watch it later as well. We're recording for them. So yeah, let me pop this for you so that you can. Do you want to stand there or take a seat?
I need one of those hats though.
Which hat?
One on your desk, on the table.
Oh, Bentley. You have to ride a Bentley now.
Of course.
Go on, I'll let you speak.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Ray. What do I do? As OJ said, I'm a senior project manager. And at the same time, I wear different hats in the tech space. Everything from product owner, product manager, also getting my hands on technical aspects of it. And at the same time, also support with training you guys, which is obviously the training in any way I can. As you find later on, I'm the challenging stakeholder. So, there's no easy slim pickings with me whatsoever. Essentially, I call this the Northern Powerhouse for a unique purpose. And I think the biggest thing, even though I call it the Northern Powerhouse, is because it brings an array of people here for us to basically co-create. So in other words, this is God's soil, you could say, that OJ's created, okay? And what it does, it basically it's a foundation for you guys to plant your seeds and grow with that. But again, you guys have to be responsible in terms of that growth. And when I'm talking about growth, it's your own. So don't think the training is a magic wand and it's going to give you the real magic basically happens after that in terms of getting your hands dirty, rolling up your sleeve, and more importantly, communication, problem solving as well. Okay. So if you want to be pushed, your arms to be twisted for you to kind of get where you need to get to further, you're in the right place. I don't give answers. I basically challenge you to basically bring something on the table before I can even support you in that regards. Are they going to be given the learning management platform as well?
Yeah, LMS. They're doing everything, the projects.
Right, perfect.
They'll be coming in as well Monday to Friday, or as much as they can as well.
Perfect. So the LMS, whatever you do, okay, don't do what other people have done and just put it to the side after training. Use it as your point of reference all the time with what you're doing. Okay, whenever it's a project, if you come to me and say, oh, Ray, what do I do about this? I'm going to say, where's your LMS? Because that has all the answers that you need. I may signpost you, I may ask you questions to answer your own question, but I'm not going to give you the answer until you come up with something. But you'll find that, like I said, there's an array of different people that are going to come here and people that have so much value. This isn't just training to kind of just train you up, get you in a position, but it's so much more than that. When you're in a position and you find things challenging, guess what? The Northern Powerhouse, you come back to it one way or another, even if you don't want to, and we basically support you. You don't just have me and OJ, but you have other people who are even more experienced, who can kind of troubleshoot all sorts of things to prepare you, equip you to make sure that even when you go in the next day to work, you have the right answers. You may not even understand them, okay? And it will kick in as time goes on. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. So whatever you do, enjoy the process. And the more uncomfortable it is, that means you're winning. If it's not uncomfortable and you're comfortable, you're just kicking in, you're not going, right? So welcome, guys. Welcome.
Nice one. Any questions? No. Perfect. All right. Cheers, Ray. We'll let you carry on. I think you have you got my keys? Because you guys are going to be in my room, right? Yeah. But anyway, when you're ready. Cool. Okay. All right, let's carry on. So, any questions overall from what we've touched on? No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, does anyone want an espresso?
No.
No? Okay. Don't be shy, it'll be here.
You need to, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You need to close the job for it to count as a completed project. Like, you know how we're talking about before, some employers might continue to extend, not necessarily extend it, but might continue to add onto the project and might not lead to any closure at the end. Does that?
I think I get where you're going. So for a project to be, there's two types of closures, right? Closure one, which is the normal type, is that you have delivered the project. Okay. So meaning that the project had been delivered based on the time, the cost, and the scope. So if we're building a house for a client, and the client says, I need this house to be ready by January, my budget is 250,000, and it's a 6-bedroom house, fantastic, right? We then deliver the project by January at that budget based on the scope. That side of the project for us as project managers is done, right? Now, don't forget, I said all projects also have their drivers and the benefits. So for that type of project, there's going to be a benefit attached to it. And that simple benefit would be, oh, I as a client or homeowner want to have a safe space, a comfortable house that's got this, that's got that, and all the rest of it, that my family will be, okay in, and all the rest of that. That is a benefit, right?
Yeah.
So it's when that benefit is met that we can say, okay, yeah, that's been closed as well. So to bring it back again, give you another example, to bring it back to our position around the, what was it now? The manufacturing, right? Remember we said the manufacturing company will want to go from 5,000 shoes to 20,000 shoes a month. Yeah. The project is, what did we say? Altogether, 3 years as part of the program. Okay, it's going to cost us 250 million as an example. And the scope is going to be, we're going to increase our manufacturing, increase our logistics, increase this, increase that, all that kind of stuff. That's when we finish with that, that's done. But it's going to take a minute to get to where we said we wanted to from a benefit perspective, because we're not just going to jump from number 10 in the marketplace to number 5, are we?
Yeah.
Right? We actually need to sell the stuff. And by selling the stuff and going through all those functional units and all those processes, we can see it now becomes like a snowball effect, and we start realizing all those benefits. So it's only going to be until the point we've hit those benefits, ideally, within the time frame that we've said, that we can say, yes, the project is closed off completely. Not just from a delivery perspective, but more so from a benefits perspective. So there's two types, right? But as part of closure, important thing is for yourselves as project managers, lessons. So as you go through the project in itself to begin with, issues that you have, things that happen, you're documenting them and you're documenting your actions. Because then that way, when you take on another project like that, you know what to do. It's like a footballer that doesn't even take review of his own performance. You understand?
Yeah.
And then the next week he plays the same team. Of course, you're going to make the same mistakes because you didn't review what you had done. Yeah. So it's very, very important to be able to ensure that, that's something that you continually grow on. Yeah. Nice. Okay. So we're going to move on to module 2 now. All right. Which kind of covers a bit more, go into a bit more depth around project initiation. Excuse me. Here we go. So again, you said this, but we'll just keep following so we stay on track. As discussed, project initiation is about setting the project direction and the goals. What are we going to do? So important things as part of that project initiation phase: defining the scope, identifying the stakeholders, developing the project charter, provide project direction, ensures project alignment with organizational skills. So you see that last point with organizational goals. Yes, that last point relates to what I was given as the example about the shoes. You understand? That's a goal for the organization. So that project or the projects fit into the goal of the organization. So we'll have to continue along that line. So this is critical because I know I said, there's not one part that is more important than the other when it comes to the life cycle. But if you're going to get it wrong, it's likely going to be from here, right? Because like I said, if you haven't identified your stakeholders to begin with, that's a problem, right? So if it's not even just the stakeholders, if you've not been clear on what it is that you're producing, that you need to produce or you need to deliver, that as well is another problem, right? So there's a document which is critical to all of this, which would be our project charter, right? Our project charter, some places they'll call it project initiation document, which is PID. Are you code?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, project initiation document, which is PID, right? And then project charter. Now, what does this do? This basically sets out what the project is there to do. So you as a project manager will be responsible for producing this. The easiest way to think about it is it answers the questions of 5 W's and 1 H. Do you know what that is? Yeah. When, why, what, where, who, how. Maybe not all will be applicable, but it's still important because what that does for you gives you a baseline. So you have a good understanding of what it is that you're trying to achieve. So again, we're not just going to be like, oh, because we feel like it. Oh, no, we can't do because we feel like it in this type of environment. It's not going to work. Right?
Yeah.
So with the scope, obviously we discussed it, that impacts the quality, the cost, the time, right? Money matters. So if a business is going to say, okay, they want the best of the best, have they got money that can bring them the best of the best? Right? I worked on projects for Lookers. So Lookers is a car company, the car dealership. You know, they have dealerships pretty much all around the world, all around the UK, especially actually. I don't think they're global yet, but definitely all around the UK. Now, for them, because they had like dealerships, the dealerships they have all had different ranges. So I'll give you an example. They had Mercedes, Audi, Porsche. They had VW, Skoda, Peugeot, Hyundai, and all those other ones, right? So my job as an infrastructure PM was to manage the infrastructure and the networks within those environments. Well, what they did and how they worked is they graded in the environments. Let's just say bronze, silver, gold. So a premium brand like the likes of Mercedes and Audi and Porsche, they get gold standard, right? So they get the better or the best equipment. Branches like Hyundai, I'm trying to think of some other ones, Seat, Peugeot, they get maybe the silver bronze type, right? Because that's how the business is managing the quality, right? So the whole expectation is because those branches, the Mercedes and the Audis and the Porsche, are generating more revenue, they're worth more, their clientele is a lot higher, has got a bigger spend capital, or you know, that kind of stuff. That's why they did it. You understand? Ray, can you bring that down, please? Yeah, let them put it up when they come in. Yeah, right. So coming back to the scope, obviously it refers to the boundaries and the limitations of a project, including the specific goals, deliverables, the tasks, the cost, and the deadlines. All of that is critical to success. And the objectives, obviously, you guys poured it out yesterday. It's got to be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Even if someone calls you and said, oh, I'm coming to your house, what's your next question? Thank you. When? Right? You might be at home all day long, but you still want to know when. That helps you or helps them as well to be specific. Right? So the key elements of project scope and objectives is considering the deliverables, the timeline, the budgets, and the quality as well. So if you bring them all in together, those are the key things that you're going to need to ensure success of the project. Is it full? All right. Yeah. I think, do me a favor, can you take this from me, please? I'm not even sure it is. You have to, might be one of the trainers. Okay. So importance of defining the scope. Again, it helps us to establish the boundaries, right? And those boundaries are what's going to drive us to success. Because if your project doesn't have boundaries, that means it's going to be all over the place. You know, if I gave you guys a job now and I said, hey guys, I want you to, sorry, let me just get this right. Good. Come on. Yeah. If I gave you a job now and I said, hey guys, somebody. No. Oh, okay. Okay, no worries. If I gave you a job now and I said, okay, I want you to paint this room for me without giving you any boundaries, without giving you more details, it's a problem. You understand? Because you're going to be like, where do we start? Where do we stop? Right? So you have to ensure that. So when you get into a project environment, clarity is very, very important. Right? You have to ask questions so that you make sure you're able to move to the right track. Good. So just continuing with that, It helps us to provide a basis of planning and execution, facilitates communication and collaboration, enables effective project management. Yeah, this is why we're there. One key thing is what you will get in a project world. Let me just out a bit. Yeah, perfect. What you will get in the project world is the point or the aspects of ensuring that what you are trying to do is going to be suitable. So that means you need to look at a market analysis. Basically, you start off with conducting a feasibility study. And that part of that is a market analysis, technical analysis, financial and legal. No business is going to take on a project where they don't have either the resources in-house for it or access to those resources. Both are important, right? And unlike certain areas in the world where they just do things for the sake of doing it without planning, I'm not going to name any countries, but, you know, in more or better developed locations, you can see that there's a lot of planning and thoughts that has gone into things. So nothing's just been done on a case of just because. No, there's no room for that just because. It doesn't work that way. You understand? Yes. So by conducting a thorough assessment of the market demand, the technical feasibility, financial, legal, project managers can ensure the proposed project is feasible and has a high likelihood of success. That's what we measure. Yeah. So it's not just, yes, I delivered the project on time, on cost, on scope, but was it successful? Did it meet its benefits? So that's more important than anything else at this point in time. And then the importance of conducting a feasibility study in assessing project viability and potential risk. What is that covering? That helps evaluate project viability. Potential risk helps us to make informed decisions and secure funding. All of that is important to us. So the whole idea for this is before we get into something, we really need to know as much as we can what it is that we're getting into. Right? It's important. We need to understand our competitors, what is our distribution channel, our customers, the market, the technology, right? Certain projects are not necessarily something that the business wants to do. Projects at times are things that the business has to do because it's been imposed on them by possibly the government or maybe regulatory bodies. If you think back to, I think it was, what project was it now? But if you just think back to COVID, actually, a lot of businesses have to spin up projects on the spot because all of a sudden government's like, well, if you want to stay open, you have to do this, you have to do that. You know, if you're a restaurant and you wanted to stay open or to keep serving customers, you have to put partitions between tables and stuff like that. It's crazy, but they had to do it, you know, because they wanted to stay open. They wanted to keep generating revenue, you know, so it's very important. With the market analysis, there's the process of evaluating the market environment and just kind of making sure like what we're doing, is it suitable for the market, right? In some cases, this might not apply at all. So if you're building a house for a customer, a client, so to speak, you know, you're not necessarily going to be looking at the market analysis because it's not like you're doing something that is out there to compete with others, right? Yeah. Now, the technical one is very, very important to me because I've seen it too many times where businesses don't necessarily have the right skills, right? They take on projects and they're running with it, and then they get to a point where it's like, ooh, we don't actually have the right people for this. Then they get stuck. You understand? So before that happens, we need to have made sure that, okay, we have all the right people in the right places. Even if we don't have them internally, can we get access to them? You understand? Can we get access to them? How can we engage them? But more than likely, you have to consider the key factor on this that's going to really govern this is the cost. Because depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve and how specialist skill set you need, the higher the skill set, the more it's going to cost you, right? And that's just standard. You know, if we said now, like we said yesterday, give you an example that Costa Coffee says, oh, okay, you know what? We want to take on a project to go to space, as an example.
Yeah.
If that's what they're saying, then they don't have the resources. Like we said, they don't have rocket scientists. What do they have? They have baristas. But if they really, really wanted to do it and to say, you know what, let's play this out. Let's see how this actually works. And they really, really wanted to do it, what would that look like? Right? We'll probably have to ring up NASA. Or we got my good friend Elon Musk and say, hey, Big E, what's going on? You got some spare rocket scientists you can send to us. And he's like, oh, really? Why are you guys doing? We want to go to the space. He'll probably be like, just give me the money instead. I'll do it for you, right? But if they wanted to do it themselves, then they're going to realize they're going to have to pay through their noses to do it. So by the time they do all of that investigation and research, they'll probably get some sense along the way and be like, no, this isn't something we can do. Because if, for example, a rocket scientist is costing them, like, you know what, £250,000 a month or something, and that's just for one guy, they're going to be stuck. You understand? So it's understanding what really is very important for the business. So do we have the technical ability? Do we have the right people in the right places? Can we actually make it happen? You understand? It's very, very important. Obviously, financial as well. Literally, the mirror, all these analysis mirror each other. So without saying it all over again, financial, again, making sure, do we have the backing? Is it something we can actually achieve? Can we do this? Right? It's very, very important. Very, very important, you know? Businesses are considering, what is the overall project cost? Right? What revenue are we going to get from doing this? What is the ROI, return on investment? So if they look at it and they're like, nah, this isn't worth it, you know? If, for example, now, if you went to university and you finish university and the job you can get, the highest you can get is what, like 30K? You'd be like, nah, I'm not doing this. You understand? Because you've actually looked at it and said, oh, based on returns on investment, it's not going to work. You understand? So when you look at it again and it's like, oh, okay, if I do a call, so if I do this or if I do that, then my potential return on investment is going to be 100K upwards. You're going to be like, yeah, that's something we need to do. You understand my point? Yeah, perfect. So let's do this. Let me see. So that concludes on that, and then we've got the stakeholders part as well, which is very important. Let's take a break. Let me just pause this. Let's take a break. Olu, okay, you've just joined us. All right, thank you for coming. We're just going to take a break